Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today, as part of our series, American Mavericks, we're going to be looking at the 1956 production, Patterns. Now, this stars Van Heflin, but it really stars someone else, and that's Rod Serling in his pre-Twilight Zone days, when he really made a reputation for himself with a television version of this film that was so successful it was made into a feature film. There's a lot to unpack here. It's a portrait of corporate America in the post-war era, and it's a moving chamber drama in any number of ways. To help us with that unpacking, we have, after today's screening, another friend of City Cinematheque, Professor Mark Dolan of John Jay College, a noted expert on American mass media. We'll be talking with him about that and much more. Now, take this journey into Manhattan in the 1950s in Patterns. Welcome back to City Cinematheque and to the 21st century in Manhattan, where we're taping right now, after you've just had this extraordinary journey into mid-20th century Manhattan and corporate culture. This is a very, very rich film, and there's a lot to talk about. I'm very happy to have returning to City Cinematheque my CUNY colleague from John Jay College and from the Graduate Center, Professor Mark Dolan. Mark is the author of numerous articles on various aspects of American culture, cinema, and mass media. A number of people may know him from his book about Bruce Springsteen and the promise of rock and roll. Yes. And so, welcome back. And I had mentioned in our introduction that while Van Heflin is technically the star actor here, in many ways this is a star piece for Rod Serling. Absolutely. In his pre-Twilight Zone incarnation of that. So tell us about this film and Rod Serling, excuse me, I know his name, Serling's place in this moment in American television and film.
Well, at that point, first half of the 1950s, a great deal of television were these anthology shows, what would be called in Britain Play of the Week.
Okay.
And so you would have some really great writers working their way through there. Paddy Chayefsky is one of the more famous ones, but also Gore Vidal basically supported himself during the 1950s by writing these things. And it was amazingly hectic. It was, you know, you might spend more than a week writing it, but it would be a week producing it. You'd have all these great actors in New York who would come together. And Serling, by his estimate, Patterns was his 72nd play. He had been writing for just various anthology programs, placing everything he could. He started writing in radio. In fact, his first professional work was a radio script. But he had been writing, and he didn't think it was going to be that big a deal. Well, the fact is, it got some of the strongest response. As he put it, you know, we said nobody would call. You know, we left our house, we said nobody would call, and the phone hasn't stopped ringing since then. But what he ended...
This is for the 1955
television
production.
But something very unusual had happened. And understand, already the TV anthologies had produced Marty, they had produced 12 Angry Men, things that we know quite well. And Marty had even been turned into a film. But this was legendary in the fact that there was such a strong response to it, that it was put on the air in January of 1955, live, of course.
Yeah.
That the network arranged for it to be staged a second time live in February. First time this happened in the history of U.S. television. And so it proceeds to launch Serling's career in earnest. It also gains him his first of many Emmys. Mm-hmm. And plans are made to put it together as a film.
Okay. So this is interesting to me because this is, I think, the least well-known of a couple of these. I mean, this is a film that has now gained a reputation. It continues to, it continues to gain a reputation. So in this moment, what are some of the differences between the two? First of all, let me stop and say that the kinescope of the play.
Yes.
People, if they want to go out on YouTube or
It
their
is
favorite,
out there in several versions.
several versions, so you can see it. You can our spectators can do the comparison and contrast between the two. So what they've got opportunity here. So what from your point of view are the opportunities they wanted to take when being able to make the film?
It's a fascinating case of adaptation because the simplest thing about it is probably the most important thing about it, which is they had to do it on TV as under an hour with commercials, with 3 commercials. Mm-hmm. And there's a very simple 3-act structure. If you look at the film, which is a little under an hour and a half,
Right.
it basically takes the same 3 movements of the narrative and expands each of them by about 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And that expansion is more characterization. It's interesting that two of the 3 lead actors, of course, are the same. The difference is the lead character, Van Heflin's part, is played by Richard Kiley on TV. If you look at the TV version, Ramsey is a much stronger presence in the beginning, and there's much less time for the Ed Begley character to really be developed. Because of the extension, and there are more conversations with Ed Begley's character, he talks more about what his goals are, what his past was, etc. Ramsey becomes a much sterner, mysterious figure because he's the least fleshed out of the 3, which makes the final conversations at the end much more powerful because you're guessing what's on his mind for most of the movie. And then at the end you see, oh, here's his point. Everybody's point of view gets expanded more to the point where you actually can say, okay, I agree with this character, or I agree with this character, I agree with this character, because they get more time to talk.
Right.
The TV version, and it's reflected in the lead actors, the TV version is much more frenetic, as I imagine making a 1-hour play for television was.
Live.
Live, and I don't know how the stage managers ran it. But they're crisscrossing all over the place. It's a lot of what I call soap opera shooting, where it's very much close-ups with people's heads cut off, and you cut from close-up to close-up. In the film, again, it breathes.
Very well said. Yes.
That you take more time in the scenes. You also can do something that simply isn't practical in TV in the 1950s, which is you can do reaction shots. Mm-hmm. You can look at somebody's face when they're listening to someone else, which just is not practical in a TV setting, at least in 55, I mean. So you will have larger sets. I mean, I think one of the most impressive things here, in the TV version, they had a half dozen standing sets they went between, and that was miraculous. But the hallway set, in particular in the film, just that is used so well, and it almost seems when you get to the night scenes that it seems even longer than it did during the day. And a lot of that has to do with the feel of the movie. But no, I think Van Heflin really fleshes out the character where it does become about his conflicts. I mean, think one of the problems with these anthology shows and with Rod Serling in general at his worst is that it becomes raison yours, people speaking the truth to the camera.
Right.
Almost everything Rod Serling ever wrote about racism is an example of this. It's like, yes, racism is bad. Because people get more of a chance to explore their views, Van Heflin's conflict becomes a real conflict. Mm-hmm. That, in other words, he does want to succeed. The real question is, does Ed Begley's character really behind the times? Because what you come out in the movie, they've just seen it. I don't feel like I'm giving something away here.
No, you're not.
What the movie makes clear that the TV version does not, is that the reason the ideas succeed is that Van Heflin knows how to repackage them for a modern age. That it's not just that Ramsey is keeping Begley down because he doesn't like the ideas. He doesn't know how to sell them. And in some ways, that's the harshest lesson of the film, is it's not really what you're saying, it's how you sell it, which is a very, very cynical message that becomes much clearer in the film version.
Well, this takes us into a kind of moving the frame out. This is a chamber piece in a lot of ways. It's taking place in all of these, in these intimate spaces. But as a chamber piece, it really is, an inquiry, I'm put it strongly, kind of into the soul of a corporate America of the 1950s that is soaring in success.
Absolutely.
This is a moment of societal, from one point of view, of incredible societal success and confidence, and yet this is a film that is going after that and is saying, well, wait a minute, well, what are the conflicts that are beneath something of this? So what do you make of this as, now we're looking at it almost 75 years later, as a piece that is an historically situated piece quite intentionally.
Yes.
This is who we are today, and the today happens to be 1955.
And it's a decade of, even aside from just business, a decade of incredible self-examination, and I would even say self-doubt for the United States as a culture. That, in other words, this is when American Studies,
Your field,
really is rising, and it's a looking inward. Who are we? It's a point when American Studies includes sociologists and anthropologists, which it hasn't really that much since. But they're looking at what is an American culture. And a lot of it focuses on the rise of big business.
Okay.
This film comes out almost exactly halfway between, not exactly, but it comes out between the book White Collar and The Organization Man. And mixed in there also is The Lonely Crowd. That this is are we losing our soul by going into these skyscrapers? I mean, the TV version sets it near Grand Central. This sets it downtown. But I always think, when I think of the business culture in the 1950s, I always think of 6th Avenue. Because all the Time Life building and all those buildings that went up. And, the opening of North by Northwest is the exact same thing. It's that crisscross of the modern design. And are we losing ourselves in this big organization? So I think that self-examination was part of it. And Serling was the sort of person who liked to grab things by the teeth and just gnaw at them.
No, I'm interested. Serling was quite articulate about his own work and his place in the industry, what his experience had been, and he's publishing even in the 1950s. Some of these scripts are being published.
Yeah.
Which is itself a kind of landmark that, here is this ephemeral medium that we all thought was ephemeral, etc. But okay, so we think some of this stuff is now of high value, and so it's going to go into the way we preserve things, which is to put it into books. So in his own comments about this, it's very conspicuous that he says this is not a Marxist critique of capitalism.
Well, I would agree. I mean, I think.
Not that I'm disagreeing. I'm just saying it's very interesting that he feels that he needs to right the ship so you understand what course he's on.
And I think that's one of the reasons why Ramsey ends up being a more sympathetic character in the film, because he has a point. That, in other words, he talks very much about how the businesses are going to be here even when we're not, which is a very prescient notion. But I think, I think it's not a Marxist critique, but it's something that Serling went back to on a number of occasions, which is he frequently looked at where is fellow feeling in a heartless world. And this is a theme he will come back to again and again in multiple works. And I think it is that search for fellow feeling that drives Van Heflin's conflicts all the way through. And also the character of Ed Begley's secretary.
Yes.
Played wonderfully by Elizabeth Wilson in the film, who is a wonderfully complex human being and is in some ways the moral center of the movie.
Yes.
To a great extent, more than any of the three highlighted men.
Right. No, she reminds me of a film I think many of our spectators know of, Billy Wilder's The Apartment, and there's the doctor next door, the person who says, what you need to be is a mensch, and that's a real human being, etc. And he becomes this kind of moral pole in this other film that's another critique and look at American.
One of the best visions of an office, of a soulless office environment since The Crowd.
Absolutely. Absolutely the case. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about we have the hallway, but I think this film is also just visually very rich. And I think what you were bringing up about the being able to breathe. So we're actually able to not only see and feel the performances, but we have a strong feeling for place.
Yes.
In this, and the sense that the presence of Everett Sloane as Ramsey,
Yeah.
invariably brings to mind for many of us Citizen Kane, et cetera, and the way in which Kane as a business figure, among his many aspects, is also seen in this regal. I mean, what if you have a capitalist democracy, what's your royalty? Well, your royalty are these elites, and there's a particular style to that, which becomes Xanadu in Citizen Kane, and is very much this office environment of the high rise, who gets to get on the elevator, and
Where
then
you're seated at the table.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think Kane is an interesting comparison, but the one difference I would say is that the human beings loom larger in Kane. Whereas here, and it goes back to that Ramsey comment at the end, the structure almost seems larger than the human beings. And that notion that different human beings will come into that same structure.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think one gives to give credit to the director, the great cinematographer Boris Kaufman, and Richard Silbert, the production designer, because we have that sense that the mise en scène and the way in which people interact with it, which is revealed to us both through blocking and camera, is that there is something permanent here, and it ain't you guys.
Exactly. And I think one of the most interesting things about adapting it is the mistake that too often was made, and it's probably because the person who wrote it for TV wrote it for the film. Too often they open up a stage-bound story when they make a film. And frequently that ruins some of the pressure. You don't want to spend, yes, you have to go have the party, but you don't want to spend that much time out of the office.
Right.
You want to be in this claustrophobic setting, in part because Begley's character, and one infers Heflin's character, spends so much time in it that they're not going to get out of it. So if you showed us, hey, let's see the streets of New York. No, you see the streets of New York at the beginning. You see, the hospital just at the back of the bar. But the rest of the time, you're just in this place, and you're not leaving it.
No, and obviously that's underlined when we return to Van Heflin a couple of months later, and we see his level of comfort in the environment.
Yes.
He's made the office his own. He's clearly, literally, he's got his sleeves rolled up.
Yeah.
And you have this sense of, okay, how many hours is he spending here? What is this investment of genuine managerial passion on his part to get it done and get it done in the right way? But then that throws up this question of these different balances in life that come, for example, with the recurrent theme of how many ball games have been missed.
All the tickets that have been stored away.
Yeah, all the tickets that have been stored away, which is all about the clock time in the office, and how to be successful, and even on human terms, you have to nonetheless be obsessive about this as opposed to the other aspects of your life.
Yeah, and I think you see where they get the joy at work.
Yeah.
In that middle section, I like how Begley and Heflin actively collaborate, and you see that each of them is sparking off the other. So there is a pleasure to what they're doing in the office that they don't seem to have when they're outside. The one break you get is the party, and it doesn't seem like much of a break.
No, not at all. And of course, that's enfolded into it in that, his wife has given the materials to, and so all of a sudden, there he is. There's Ramsey sitting at a desk, pouring over,
at a party,
and having exactly what he believes is his function in the film. My function is to focus. And I'm a kind of, I use an anachronism, I'm a kind of laser here.
Yeah.
That I turn on the laser, and that's what that's what I do. And lovely suburban home be damned.
I was saying to you before we started taping, and I repeated, You have Beatrice Straight as the wife. And of course, she's famous and wins an Academy Award for Network 20 years later.
Absolutely.
People have sometimes talked about the similarity between this and Executive Suite. I would love to swap out William Holden in Executive Suite for Van Heflin here, and you could have a couple in 1955, and you see them 20 years later in 1975, and what have they become? And what has work become?
Oh, it's a very, yeah. Well, and by the way, one of the through lines here is people who graduated from writing for television
Yes.
to writing for this, because this is the Paddy Chayefsky
Right.
we're referring to, a City College graduate, I might.
I knew he was from Q. I guess I should have assumed City. The John Jay didn't exist back then, but he.
So it's not your fault.
Right, exactly. Chayefsky, but Chayefsky had already had the success of having Marty made for film.
Right.
I can't remember if he won the Oscar for that. He might have.
No, I don't remember.
Okay.
That's the short answer.
But yeah, it becomes a training ground. I mean, more so for the actors, but I wouldn't say for the writers. It's akin to what happened in the late 1900s, when if you have to make a one-reeler every week, you learn certain habits extremely well, because you get more and more efficient as time goes on, and then later you can take your time with something.
Well, and just to come back, this is a very interesting. The director of this film is a very interesting case. And I want to talk about him in a second, but I want to do the contrast of the Arthur Penn, John Frankenheimer, Sidney Lumet, and a host of others. I mean, you and I can name another half dozen to a dozen. These are the people who are doing in television in this moment exactly what the one-reeler people were doing. This is their film school. This is where you learn how to work efficiently and well, etc. Many years ago, I was at a film festival where John Frankenheimer was being celebrated, and someone asked a question about working, I think, on the train with Renoir, the great French cinematographer. He said, "How did you collaborate with him?" I said, "I didn't collaborate with him. He did what I told him to. I know all the lenses." But that was him talking about the fact that, no, I had to know all of that stuff, while I was directing live, and we have. This is this great staging ground for all these actors who have all this opportunity at this particular moment. And some of the most famous American directors of the 70s are going to be people who were known in the industry, but not known to people as a whole. That they become, it's Sidney Lumet and Dog Day Afternoon, but in 53, they don't know who he is. He's the young man who is making all of these and is transitioned from stage into television.
And then you have a later generation where that's music videos.
Yeah.
In the 80s. And they become great directors later, but they start. David Fincher makes some of the best things that were ever shown on MTV. And you got 2 days to shoot, and you got to do it quickly.
And it's worth mentioning that there is a recurrent pattern in our wonderful American culture of this being reviled mass culture of a kind, or it's kind of fake high culture in some way. So there's people saying, well, people from that world don't go into other worlds, and then 10, 15, or 20 years later, the people they idolize, you said, did you notice where they came from? Did you notice?
In 20 years, it's going to be TikTok.
Well, yes.
This is where, the thing is, those reviled forms are where you can get in on the ground level fairly easily.
Oh, very good
And
point.
there aren't gatekeepers to a certain extent. There were so many anthology programs being produced. And eventually, they do start doing them at Studio City and start doing some in LA. But in New York in the early 50s, you could get a job for actors. It was a godsend.
Right.
And that's later that becomes soap operas. But at that point, there weren't that many televised soap operas, but it literally, you got a gig for a week.
Yeah. Absolutely the case. So what would you say if I ask you, and I am about to ask you, what are some of your kind of takeaways from Patterns? What are some to you, as a particular kind of 50s film, what do you admire most about it?
I think it's quiet modesty. As I said, those moments that breathe. I like how the more you think about it, the more problematic the conclusion is. And both for Serling and for what we would call maybe problem pictures.
Okay, yeah.
Problem pictures usually have one person at the end who speaks truth.
Right.
And this is a much odd. I mean, the ending is almost like the ending of The Graduate or The Candidate, where it's, what do we do now? It's sort of, we have won, but have we won? And it's more thought-provoking than a lot of other, than Blackboard Jungle, for example.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Where, much more celebrated film. I think one of the reasons this may not have been as widely celebrated may have had to do with who released it, that it was United Artists, so you don't have the studio backing that you would have with other ones. But it's much, it makes you think. It's probably one of my favorite things Serling did, just because it's not, cut and dried.
Right. Absolutely the case. And as you have pointed out, when they let it breathe, when they make it to a film, every character is enriched.
Yes.
No one is left behind in terms of this. They're saying there's potential here to complicate this drama with the emotional range and the thought range that these characters have, speaking from particular positions of a secretary who's loyal.
Well, this is the thing. The secretaries, even in the TV version, secretaries are interesting. They're kind of like the attendant lords in a Shakespeare play, that they're doing the exposition up front.
Yeah.
But here, in the film, having them pick up their pastries and their coffee and those conversations it's better opportunity for actors to just get in a little bit of particular characterization, but also you get to hear how they would actually talk, as opposed to just getting the exposition out of the way and moving on to the major characters.
Yeah, no, that's a whole other discussion, is language in this and the American idiom at mid-20th century, of which it's a very, very rich topic. But we can't go to that because, guess what? We've run out of time.
There we go.
But there's a lot more to talk about. If you'd like to know more about City Cinematheque, or more broadly, the programming we have here at City University Television, there's a way to do so. And that's to visit our website. Visit www.tv.cuny.edu. There you're going to find our schedule of screenings on City Cinematheque, as well as access to all of our other programming and its schedules. In addition to that, you're going to find some important links. This includes our YouTube channels, where you can watch a number of our programs. So please visit our website at www.tv.cuny.edu. Mark, you've been thinking a lot about the 1950s in mass media.
Yes, I have.
Thank you for sharing those thoughts and your vast, amount of research about this. I'll be thinking about you as I'm programming in the future, because we would love to have you continue to talk about
I always enjoy it.
Okay, and it's a pleasure to have you here. And it's a pleasure to have you join us as we continue to stroll through the archives of film history here on City Cinematheque. Thanks for joining us today, but it's goodbye for now.